The US and Iran have signed a deal electronically. The terms of the deal haven't yet been published, according to Donald Trump. I'm not sure if this is the exact quote, but it's the greatest peace deal in the history of humanity. I think the way that I would see it is that the United States is about to hand over tens of billions of dollars, 24 billion I think is the figure that's being kicked around, in order to pay the Iranians to resume shipments of cheap oil to China. And contingent on that, other shipments will also be allowed through the Strait of Hormuz. So in summary, China wins on points. Let's just look at some of the component. Let's just look at some of where things have landed. Let's start with Israel. Israel has turned itself into a pariah state. It is loathed equally on the left and the right. It is seen as a colonial settler ethno-state, and that is an ideology which originated in the 1960s from the Palestine Liberation Organization, the grandfather of Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Palestinian Authority. And the point of that ideology was to position Israel as a state that had no right to exist, and as a people that had no right to be present where they are. And I think that idea, that delegitimization of Zionism, and therefore of the philosophical justification of Israel, is certainly widely accepted in academic circles, among the mainstream media, and increasingly in the political establishment. So Israel has lost the ideological war, but it has also lost the physical war at a cost of tens of thousands of lives. Hamas is still in power. Hezbollah are still deeply entrenched in Lebanon. The IRGC is still completely got a grip on Iran. The Houthi are pretty much untouched. Israel has not achieved a single one of its war aims. So that's Israel. Now think about, as it were, now think about Europe. Europe is at sixes and sevens. It's a shambles. Spain has reopened its embassy in Tehran. It is pretty much now an ally of the Iranians. The Italians are probably not very far behind. Neither Spain nor Italy have significant Jewish populations. They can be as they can stir up deep-rooted Catholic anti-Semitism as much as they like, with very little political cost. Look at Northern Europe. Merz is Merz is just blows in the wind. I think Alice Weidel, the leader of the Alternative for Deutschland, the very right-wing party, is on the threshold of certainly, if not power, certainly very significant influence. In France, Macron, you could say, is the same as Merz. Very little credibility. Again, Jordan Bardella, the leader of the Republic Party, might well be the next president. And then in the UK, you have the same situation with Keir Starmer, who's really just completely lost credibility, is unlikely to last more than another few months. In each of these countries, the military situation is just chaos, and rather like the Americans, we're spending hundreds of billions, if not trillions, on equipment which is probably obsolete before it's even been designed. Never mind made and built and paid for. So there you have Europe. Now think about the Arab states. Think about particularly the Gulf states, so UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, and so on. they've really taken the brunt of the Iranian response to the American and Israeli attacks. What would you be thinking if you were a leader in one of those countries? And I'll tell you what I'd be thinking is that here's America with its $1 trillion defense budget, unable to contain a state that is an economic disaster and that is fighting it off with speedboats and toy drones. That is what has really happened in this war. If I was running one of those states, I would think America is not only unreliable, it's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. And I would not be wanting to vouchsafe my security or my future to the Americans. So Japan, we don't think a lot about Japan, but in terms of geopolitical strategy and security, the Sane Takaichi, the Prime Minister of Japan, was recently in London at Downing Street, talking about the joint fighter plane that the British and the Japanese and the Italians are developing. I quite honestly, to be knocking on Keir Starmer's door feels desperate to me. Quite honestly, I wonder Japan, Korea, Taiwan, if they're feeling what the Arab states are feeling, that America, it's lost its reliability, it's losing its identity, it doesn't know what it stands for anymore. Its military is an expensive white elephant. You know, is Japan, Korea, are they going to flip? Are they just going to throw the lot in with China? You know, not such a bad outcome from their point of view. What alternatives do they have? What choices do they have? Hard to say. So China wins on points. It's stayed very quiet. It's supported Iran, supported Russia, supported North Korea, supported it. It's held on to its axis of opposition, its axis of autocracy, but it hasn't been very loud or obstreperous or difficult in terms of trying to oppose the American-Israeli actions. It's positioned itself as stable, powerful, patient, non-judgmental, an agency of peace. Now, I don't think China is any of those things, but that's the way I think that is the way that it comes across. As I said before, the cheap oil is going to be starting to flow again very shortly, according to Donald Trump, and I think that is probably the one thing that is actually going to eventuate. In May, beautiful timing, May the 14th, Donald Trump is in Beijing, kowtowing to the Emperor Xi Jinping. A week later, Vladimir Putin follows in, kowtows to the Emperor Xi Jinping. In a couple of weeks, Xi Jinping will be in Pyongyang in North Korea to remind, I think, Kim Jong-un, the dictator of North Korea, that it's China, it's Xi Jinping is his landlord, and he had better pay his rent, and he had better not be flirting too much with other local dictators such as Vladimir Putin. Beijing is the Middle Earth. China is the Middle Earth. China is the Middle Kingdom. Not the Middle Earth. Is the Middle Kingdom, and that's where you come, and that's where you bow down, because that is where the power of the future lies. I think there is just one. There's kind of one bright spot, I suppose, on this outcome, which is that the theocracy in Iran is finished. It's no longer run by the Ayatollahs. Iran is run by the IRGC, so it is in effect a military junta. It's a military regime. And the thing about military regimes is that they are very cruel, very aggressive, very insecure, and because of that, very self-serving, and thankfully, they don't tend to last very long. And it's not uncommon that the side that wins the war is also the side that loses the peace. And I think that that's one thing that we can be vaguely or broadly or hopeful or optimistic about. And I would hope that in Israel, Netanyahu, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, the architects of this disastrous conflict, are finished. That they will be voted out and shamefully no longer be any part of Israel's political future. So, China wins on points.